Hi everyone, today we're going to be making a painting for that wall right there. This is my last landscape painting, and it's not something I do very often, but we're going to take a look at that process and see what that looks like. So I knew I wanted to use teal for the background, so we're going to need to use blue and yellow to make the teal color. So here's what that process would look like. You would think you would need to mix blue and green, but actually you mix blue and yellow to make green, as shown on that color wheel we just saw. And then I added a little bit of silver to the end to kind of give it a metallic look to it. And I'm just using a palette knife to mix it together. These were 3 really large canvases that I had that I whitewashed. And then I just added the blue paint over top, and that's going to be my background color. I know it looks blue here, but it really is teal. It's just bad lighting. I did have to do multiple coats because you can see it's really streaky. But, you know, I almost always have to do multiple coats just because it never does full coverage on one coat. And these canvases are very large, so it's 3 canvases and they are about, 18 by 25 or something in that range there. So now I just got a pencil and I'm just kind of drawing on here where I think the trees are going to go. And 3 canvases are going to kind of connect, so you're going to see some of the tree branches on the other canvases. And this is how I make the moon. So this is a really easy way on how to make a moon for a painting. So I just got this glass jar, and it's the same one I used previously to mix my color, and then I painted the top rim. I only wanted part of the moon to be shown, not a full moon. So if you want a full moon, paint the whole thing. So since I'm going with a crescent moon shape, I'm painting it with my dark color, which technically should be black. I kind of messed this up a little bit here, but I went with a dark gray instead. And then I just press it down onto the canvas. Hold it there for a few seconds, and then it kind of gives you the outline of your moon. So you're going to start with your darkest color and work your way from there. And as I previously stated, I did kind of mess this up. I should have started with black, but I did go back later on and make my moon a little bit bigger. So you'll see that later on as well. So you're going to start with your darkest color and then slowly add your lighter colors and kind of gradient them in with small brush strokes. And acrylics dry very quickly, so you kind of want to work this process very quickly, or you want to add an additive to your paint so that it stays wet longer. So what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of white to the gray color that I added, and this gives it a better transition. If you keep adding different shades of gray to it and different brands, it's not going to look so cohesive. But if you just add white to your base color, it's going to look more of a cohesive look. It's all the same base color of gray. It's just adding white to get that other shades in there. So I'm just kind of filling that out a little bit. And like I said, I don't do a lot of landscape paintings. It's not really something I do very often. But I knew I wanted something for my office space, and it's technically my guest bedroom, but it also doubles as my office space, and it had to be work friendly, so I knew my normal content really wouldn't work. But I think this landscape is still kind of like a spooky forest theme, so it still works well within my creepy vibes. So you can see here, I'm just kind of brushing upwards to kind of give the moon a, like you're not seeing the whole thing and it's kind of radiating off a little bit. And just kind of mixing that gray and the white to give it a little more depth. And this is something that you're going to have to practice with to get better at, but I do a lot of gradients, so this is kind of natural for me. But when you're all starting off painting, it does take a while. It does look easy, but it takes a bit to kind of get used to what brushes and things to use. I'm just kind of tapering it off. Like I said, I don't want to be able to see the whole moon, and I don't really want a pure crescent shape either. I kind of went like a little bit of a moon shown. And then I just got my sponge on a stick here, and I'm just kind of dabbing over it a little bit more to give it almost like an ephemeral look. Adding a little bit of black again to just kind of add some extra color in there Hey guys, if you like this sort of content and you like watching my art process, as well as seeing my three cats just be cats during the whole process, give the channel a like and a subscribe. And if there's anything you want to purchase, just reach out to me on social. Thanks. So here's what it looked like when I was done, and I did end up making that larger, and you'll see that in a bit. So right now I'm trying to practice making my trees, and here's a picture I took of some trees, and here's another picture of some trees at night. What you want to do is mix some water and some black paint, and you really want it to be really, really runny, almost like an ink consistency. So I'm just kind of testing that out right here to see if this is the right consistency that I'm looking for. And this is just a piece of paper to kind of practice my trees before I put them on the canvas. I don't want to, I'm not confident enough to do it just freehand. I don't do landscapes enough, so I kind of wanted to practice a little bit first. So this is a junk piece of paper, and these are just some trees that I'm just kind of working with here. So a lot of people can start from the top and work their way to the bottom, but I'd like to start from the bottom and work my way to the top. You do whatever works for you. So I'm using a size 0 brush here and a size 3 brush. So the 0 brush is going to be a really small fine detail brush. And what you want to do is you want to start at the thickest point and kind of go slowly upwards and in a V-like motion, and just have a little bit of paint on your paintbrush there, and almost like you're barely touching the canvas. So you barely want to touch the canvas with those branches because they're really, really thin. You definitely don't want the middle of your paintbrush, especially that size 0, touching the canvas. So you really want to go really small. If you have to dabble off some of your paint into your paint palette, then that's fine. If you find that you have too much paint on your paintbrush, you can always go back to your trunk here and make that a little bit wider or darker, but you definitely want to start at your base every time you do a branch, because that's going to be where most of the paint's going to drip off. But like I said, some people do like to start at the tip of the branch and then go towards the base. So in that instance, you would go the lightest pressure to the heaviest pressure. This is more difficult for me to do, and I find it easier to go to heaviest to lightest, but you'll have to play around with what works for you. So you want to look at some landscape in real life. You want to take some photographs and kind of see the natural shape of trees and how things flow. And that's going to be your best reference for how to paint trees that have no leaves, or even trees that have leaves. So because my trees are not going to have leaves, I'm going to add all these little tiny V's here to the end of my branches. If your tree had leaves, you wouldn't really need to add all the little tiny ones because the branches are going to be covered up mostly by leaves. And you would just need some of these larger ones and maybe a couple of really small ones in there. But because my trees are going to be bare, I definitely wanted to get those little minute details in there. So this is just like a little practice, and just kind of getting the pressure right and getting the feel for the brushes and how I want my trees to look. Another thing to know is trees are not really going to be straight up and down. Most of the time they're going to have a little wiggle to them. You don't want to go too wiggly with your trees, but every once in a while just kind of slightly nudge it here or there, because trees are not straight up and down. Most of the time they're leaning just a little bit to the left or to the right. So it's something to keep in mind when you're painting your little tiny branches and trees, stems. And since you're just practicing, you can do this as long as you need until you feel comfortable with this sort of movement and flow. Once you feel comfortable, you can go to your canvas, but I just did this for a little bit to kind of get an idea of what I wanted my trees to kind of look like. Okay, so now I started painting my actual trees onto my canvas. So you can see these thicker stripes here are going to be the trunk, the kind of trunk base part of the tree. And because my canvases are going to be, the branches are going to be overlapping to the next canvas, I kind of wanted to put them next to each other and make it more fluent. So I'm just kind of adding as many branches and little tiny branches as I think, and moving throughout the canvases and just keep going, just adding little tiny details of trees and branches, and again, just all these little tiny veins. I did switch to the zero brush for almost everything at this point because I felt like I could always go back and make it a little bit thicker. So here's where I decided to make the moon a little bit bigger. When I looked at the 3 canvases, I felt the moon was a little too small. So I did correct my mistake last time. This time I started with the black, and then I'm adding the grays and then the whites, and just kind of going over it with my little sponge here and just jabbing it on until you see the layers. And then I just got a little bit of black there at the end and just kind of added some specks of black. And at this point, I am practicing my clouds. So I got white paint and I really watered it down here. So these are really kind of like misty, kind of cloud fog kind of thing up here. So I'm doing 3 of them because the eye tends to like things in odd numbers versus even. I don't know why. That's just a thing with painting and pretty much everything home decor related. The eye tends to be more pleased by things that are in odd numbers. So I'm just gonna keep going over these clouds and try and make them a little bit more prominent, but not super prominent. And we're just adding more trees. And right now it just kind of looks really wonky and weird, and it just looks like nothing. But the more branches you add, the more spokes you kind of go off and add more of, it will look better and better. So if you mess up when you make a little bit that's too thick and you're like, I don't know, just keep going. You may end up liking it later on. You can always make that another tree. That's the great part about this, is like you can just disconnect a tree anywhere and make it into a new tree, and just keep going until you're happy with the way it looks. So this is what it looked like at that point, and I wasn't happy with it. I thought about it over a couple days, and I thought, no, I want to make my base of these trees a little bit bigger, and I want to add more and more kind of little spikies coming off here. So I added more branches and just kind of more details because I think it needed something a little bit more. So I kept going until I was happy with it. So we're just adding more to this middle canvas here, and I wanted the trees to be at varying heights. I didn't want them to all be the same height because trees in nature are not all the same height. So this is what it looked like when I was done the second half. And this is what it looks like on the wall. So you guys tell me what you think. Do you like it? Until next time, stay spooky, my friend.